Welcome, everyone, to Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders. This is Betska, the Guru Coach, with my wonderful host, Raj Vashisht from Delhi. I'm from Vancouver Island. And our guest today is Olga. Help me pronounce this properly, Olga. Is it Olga Naert?
Olga Naert.
Not Olga
Beautiful
Naert.
Olga.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I had an aunt named Olga, and she was always lovely. So you just bring some fond memories back to me of how lovely she was. So everyone, Olga was born and raised in Ukraine, but lived for 13 years in Sweden and for the last 2 years in Belgium. She's happily married for 10 years, and she has 2 delightful little boys, a 6-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. And they're truly an international family. And this is what I love about European families. They speak 3 languages. They speak English, Dutch, and Russian. How cool is that? So sounds like you have a lovely home life, Olga. And let me introduce a little bit about her professional life. She has been in the corporate world for almost 15 years, building her career in some of the biggest corporations in the world, such as Volvo. You all know that, Volvo car company, McKinsey, and Ernst & Young. Wow, fabulous experience, just like I had with 3M. I loved working for 3M globally. Now, what was interesting is while being on her career path and being very successful, she realized that she wanted to do a lot more in the world to create more impact. So what does she do today? She is into the coaching world. She's a certified career coach, and she loves the impact she has on people. So without further ado, Olga, welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you so much. Amazing introduction. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Honored to be here.
Just delightful to have you. Today, we want to discuss the impact of war. And we know the Russia-Ukrainian war has been going on, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now. It's been a long, it feels like 10 years, but it's been a long time.
Neat.
And the war has been devastating in Ukraine. We watch it on TV here from Canada, you know, the buildings, the whole towns being decimated, and the people, you know, lots of people are dying, and the children suffering, and it's very distressful for us, also those who live outside of Ukraine, to watch this devastation. You were born in Ukraine, right, as we just said, and you still have family in Ukraine. I think you have, what, parents, siblings, friends? Tell us about who you still have in Ukraine.
I have everyone except my closest family, except my husband and my children, but all the rest of the family is really still in Ukraine. And that is my mother, my sister with her family, my siblings, my friends. So yeah, still everyone is still in Ukraine.
So how do they describe this war when you speak with them? How do they describe it? You know, there's physical impact, but there's also emotional, spiritual impact. How would you describe how they feel?
Well, first of all, they're all shocked still. It's shocking. And it's still shocking because no one can believe that this can happen in the 21st century. Like the war can happen, and the cruelty that they've been. No, everyone is really just shocking is the first thing that they still say how they experience it. It's also exhausting to people because there is no escape from this. It's emotionally, as you mentioned, emotionally is really exhausting because the news are all about it. And it's also exhausting because there is no timeline to this. If you know where it ends, you can cope with this easier. But reality is that we don't know when this will finish. And so it's also emotionally exhausting because there is no end to this. On the other hand, it is emotional, but people became less emotional to the crazy news that there are. Really terrible news that, like, we will not talk about this here, but people became less emotional to that, because it's just impossible to comprehend. So their emotions became more plain, I would say, just so that their psychology can cope.
Yeah. I hear that. So they become detached from it, is what we might say in the coaching world, right? They moved away so that they don't get so upset.
Yeah, exactly. People read much less news nowadays because you cannot comprehend everything. But even when something happens, the emotions in the beginning in the war, where the whole cities were really devastated, nowadays similar news do not touch that deep. And I think it's a good thing, because otherwise you can just you can turn into, your psychology will not manage. At the same time, people got much stronger, and that helps them to be much stronger mentally. It is difficult, not just in terms of safety or war in general, but also economically. The prices are going up so much, but people cope with it with humor. They laugh on this often. When I reach my family, when I call my family, they are laughing all the time. Like sometimes it's harder for me to because I'm only reading, but when they're in it, it's in a way easier for them because they know how it is. So they are laughing a lot as well, and mentally they become much stronger because of all of that.
And the Ukrainians love to sing and dance, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're probably still singing and still dancing, even though
they adapted to the new normal, which is not normal to us, but they adapted because you don't have a choice. You either suffer or you really just live your life. It is a different life. When I call them, it can be a siren, which means they need to hide in a basement. But people often do not, because they adapted to it. It's like it's a new normal to them.
Got it. Yes.
It is part of their life.
Yeah.
So
what do you think the Ukrainian people have lost?
Yeah, I think quite a bit. Besides that, well, a lot of people lost their family members, husbands, fathers, sons. Of course, this is devastating. A lot of people lost their homes, everything. They needed to leave their home or they lost it. So of course that is obvious. But what is obvious is that they lost sense of safety and security. There is none. Even if it's targeted every day. So there is something happening every day. Mostly for the infrastructure or the bigger cities like Kyiv, Kharkiv. But the unfortunate part is that you are not safe anywhere. Even if you live in a little village of 3 houses, you are not safe there. Why? Because the rockets that are flying, they are shot down by Ukrainian army, and the pieces, they fall everywhere. And that is even more devastating than the rockets itself. So that that you might not live in Kyiv, not even close to it, but because it's flying through all Ukraine, and you never know where they will shut it down to diminish it, you are not safe. And that is, of course, that feeling of safety is not there anymore, regardless where you are. The another thing that people lost is really that, maybe not lost, but really truly damaged, is the new generation, is the children.
Oh, yes.
And that is why I think there are 2 reasons, at least from my perspective, and there can be others as well. But one is that they are living in constant stress, and they see their parents constantly stressing, even if they try not to show it, but it is on the background always. Parents are scared for their children, and so living in that definitely has an impact on children as well, even if they cannot comprehend completely what's happening. And the second is the education. Actually, Ukraine had always a very strong education. I studied myself. It's really, really high demanding and high standard education that we always had. What happens now with pandemic and war happened just after that. The education became online education. If it's offline and children go to school, it's very often that they need to go and hide in a basement, because there is no question. If there is a siren, public places, they hide. And it's frequently interrupted or not happening at all. So the education level is really, really affected as well. And that is something that we will see in the future, how that will affect eventually the new generation as well. And last thing is that something is not obvious what Ukraine is losing now is really the gene pool, the genetics. Because a lot of strong, capable, healthy men are dying in the war. Also women less, but men specifically. And those are strong genetics that are unfortunately are lost from both sides, of course, but we're talking about Ukraine. So this is something that is indirectly or even directly, but affecting negatively, of course. This is something that they are losing for the next generation.
Yes. Wow. That's a huge impact. Folks, we're going to take a short pause and we'll be back with Olga and part 2. See you soon.
Thank you.